Hey friends, this is Dr. Hazel-Grace Yates, and I am joined here with my dear friend. We've been friends for many, many years now, Victor.
Yes, we
This is
have.
Victor Waring, and you are a somatic sexuality educator. And this is a new title. I really like this one. Years now. Shame Whisperer.
Shame Whisperer.
Whisperer. It's brilliant. I love it. And you're going to be teaching at the Virtual Intimacy Retreat. The one that you're specifically going to be leading and teaching is Reclaiming Erotic Sovereignty, Self-Pleasure Circle. How is it to be here this morning with me, Victor, right now?
It is wonderful to be with you here this morning, Hazel Grace. And on top of that, my little brain is like split down the middle as I'm like tracking technological stuff. So
Okay, got
which
it.
which is perfect because it so represents the some of the stuff that comes up in doing a self-pleasure circle and doing it online in Zoom too. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, thanks for naming that. And did you get that all sorted? Or are you still doing it?
I'm just going to share it later. I'm not going to share it right now.
Okay, well, you could try sharing it right now, and I could tell the story of one of the memories of us meeting and the project you did about
I'm just going to
self-pleasure.
share it later. Okay, go for it. I'm going to try to do this.
Okay, so I imagine it's being shared if the audio is going on. Anyway, you did a project many years ago, and I did not really know you that well. I didn't know who you were, and you're like, yeah, would you be willing to be interviewed and be taking photos of me self-pleasuring? And I was like, yes, I will. And so you came over and I was talking to you about my self-pleasure, and I remember it both being like super vulnerable, and I felt super embarrassed on some levels, but at the same time I felt so safe and I felt so trusting with you. And still to this day, I will say, of all the things, public, wild, I mean all the things that I do, still to this day, even though I've done work and I've done plenty of conscious self-pleasure circles, this
Mhm.
area still holds shame for me. And like if I'm staying with a friend, um, I'm okay to have sex with a partner and be loud. But if I'm
Right.
staying with a friend and I'm self-pleasuring, I'm like,
Yeah.
anyway, that's
Yeah.
that's a memory of you.
Yeah. Yeah. That was wonderful. And that story, Hazel Grace, just it just reminds me of the reason why I just hold this work, this particular piece of positive sexuality so important, and that is self-pleasure represents in so many ways for so many people our original shame,
Mm.
our original experiences of shame woven with pleasure
Mm.
in regards to our bodies. Because for most people, like in those interviews, and I knew this before the interviews, most people, their first remembrances of self-pleasure are from when they were children.
Mm.
Most children, even infants and toddlers, are self-pleasuring. They don't have the cognitive ability or the words to, to be like, oh, I'm masturbating. In their that's not in what that's not
Vernacular.
yeah. um However, they're experiencing pleasure, and those first moments of shame when family members and parents react in particular ways, either with words or with behavior or with just attitude, is a strong, I mean, it's like one of the strongest first signals we get um,
Mm.
about what it means to be in our bodies and what it means to experience pleasure. So it's old. It's woven in there at a pre-verbal
Mm.
level, and I think it's why, like even when I'm in sex positive communities, and I talk about self pleasure, we do self pleasure circles. I mean, people participate and enjoy, but a lot of times there's like, oh my God, I didn't think this was going to be challenging for me. I'm so used to being this way, even in the presence of other people, but this is different.
Right.
So yeah, there's something important there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit. I want to back up just a little bit. And
Yeah.
why is this so important for you to do this work around somatic sexuality?
Yeah. Um, why is it important? So where I come from in this work is that I come from a somatic perspective, but I also come from an anthropological evolutionary perspective, and that is we humans, um, we're primates, we're mammals, and we have a very uh, intrinsic way about us in terms of living in our bodies and in terms of living in our sexuality and in terms of living in community,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't live anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we we have become domesticated animals in the same way that we have domesticated other animals like dogs and cattle and all the other things that we've done. We have domesticated ourselves. And so the reason this work feels important to me is so that we can reconnect with our undomesticated wild selves that is at conflict with who we are domestically. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels really important to say when I say wild, when I say the word wild, most people go, yeah, wild, woo, anything goes, woo, 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 woo. you know, um, which can be true. But I'm not
Uh,
necessarily talking about like just anything goes. I mean, like really connecting with what is a wild human like? How does a wild human act? What is a wild human's way in the
mm-hmm.
world that's different than how we're doing things now? And so I usually look to people who don't live in domesticated ways, which are uh, uh, hunter gatherers and indigenous folk,
Mm-hmm.
which again is a broad umbrella to cast, but
Sure.
there's information there.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I know that there's been a movement of rewilding and getting connected to our wild selves. And I never really got it until just now when you said something where you said our domesticated and our undomesticated part of ourselves are in conflict.
Yeah,
And so there's like this inner tension of can we be at peace? Can we be whole? Can we be integrated if these two parts are not integrated? So
yeah,
yeah, wow, cool. Thanks for that. That was helpful. All right. And then, so you're doing reclaiming erotic sovereignty, self-pleasure circle.
I am.
And why why on earth would anyone ever want to do that?
Oh my god. I don't know. I think people should rethink themselves now. So great. Thank you for asking that. So there's a couple of levels to this.
Okay.
Um, so so erotic sovereignty, one of the best, most powerful ways in my experience to reclaim erotic sovereignty is through the practice of self pleasure.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a really powerful way of coming into it's almost like standing with arms akimbo, like Superman or Superwoman, and saying like this pleasure that I'm experiencing, this is mine. This is mine. I own this. I create this. Um, I take ownership of this. I don't have to be ashamed of this. I get to share it with you, but you're not responsible for the creation of this.
Mm-hmm.
If we have some amazing thing together, then we're co-creating something. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not relying on you to create my pleasure. So
Can
so
I
that's yeah.
something happened when you said that about owning and claiming, and I just had this hit of how many people were touched first in their pleasure bodies without their choice, or like I even know many people that didn't touch themselves until they were 50, and like their pleasure was always being done to them.
Yeah.
And so that was just something that I just felt the intensity or the significance of getting to claim one's pleasure. Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you are your primary sexual partner. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and we
Mm-hmm.
tend to look at things like masturbation as like sloppy seconds to like real sex with another person.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so that's one layer of
Yeah.
why. And another layer is, and this goes back to the evolutionary piece. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Part of our wild human existence is it's not necessarily that we were sitting in huts, self-pleasuring around each other. We might have done that. I don't know. However, we were very knowledgeable and very intimate with the sexual lives of the people we lived with. Um, we heard the cries of our fellow tribe members, our fellow community members. We heard them having sex in the night. We knew that was part of our education. We were immersed in this, and that's not to say that people didn't go off and have privacy, but when you
Right.
think about like the communal hut, you know,
Right.
that's where people were sexual.
Right.
So this modern contrivance of never experiencing someone else's erotic energy um, in community, of never hearing what someone sounds like, of never seeing what someone looks like, of never smelling what other people smell like, is a really big cutoff for
Mm.
us. And
Mm.
it has, and in my opinion, it has created a whole lot of problems, including the problem we have with erotic energy as being invasive and predatory. And it's not to say
Mm.
that it can't be, it has more likelihood to be like that now
Uh-huh.
than it was, in my opinion, again, then. So
Right.
part of this, part of this experience for me is to put humans in the context of normalizing the erotic
Mm.
expression of others within a safe container where we're not predating on each other. We're celebrating ourselves and each other.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. And
Yeah.
with, and without agenda too, because one thing that happens when you self pleasure in a group is that you don't know what's going to happen. Um, I have this saying. I love to say this. The erotic is like whale watching. Um, Sometimes you go out to go whale watching and there are no whales.
Okay.
And then you just have a really nice boat ride.
Uh-huh.
So you
Got
just
it.
never know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, whew, I've been in some interesting, fascinating, different conscious self-pleasure circles. And I think the thing that amazes me more than anything, I didn't always believe in energy,
Mhm.
truth be told. And there was something very undeniable. I remember like this wave of energy that moved through the room through sounds. And it was like an ocean of energy and waves and sounds. And it was like we were in an orchestra and like singing on the same notes. And it was, whew, it was really, really wild and
Yeah.
magical.
Yeah. That's been my experience too. And it changes with different circles. But like, yeah, it's like, oh, here come the strings. The strings are coming. Oh, and here comes the percussion. Oh, and my God, here comes the brass. And it just, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing too, I oh, this was so cool. I was at Burning Man one year and I was with a woman who was at our camp. I think she was 20 years old and she'd never had penetrative sex and never seen sex, had never even watched porn. And she was like, "What is sex like?" I was like, "Well, do you want to go see it?" So we went to the orgy dome so that she could experience what real human interaction, sexual connection looks like. Because so much of us, and especially our youth, who are inundated with pornography, and we are not actually, like you said, in the present moment of what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? The diversity of erotic and sexual energy and movement. And so I think, I know a lot of people have felt in doing some of these circles have felt like, oh, it's okay for me to move like this or sound like this or feel like this or not feel like this, right? It's it just brings so much more acceptance to all of our varied experiences. So
Yeah. Yeah, and to experiment with things when people get brave with it. It's like, oh, what happens if I do this and lightning doesn't strike me, or things like that. And yeah, and you brought up another really important point that feels a part of these circles, and that is in the circle, I will talk about objectification
mm,
versus witnessing,
mm,
and I have my take on that. I don't claim to be the ultimate arbiter of these things, um, but the way I describe it in the circle is objectification, or even pornographizing uh, of this looks like when I'll speak for myself, get stuck sort of outwards.
mm,
So it means that I'm looking outwards,
mm,
and I'm using what's going on around me as my source
mm.
for what I get, and it's more consumptive. It's more like taking. And
Yeah.
again, it's not to pathologize looking, because that's what we do, but it's about being stuck.
Mm,
I'm stuck outside myself. And witnessing means to me means I have more access to my own self. I'm feeling and looking to myself as a source.
right.
So in something like the circle, and what that looks like, and what we talk about as a practice in the circle, is what I call the oscillation of erotic attention. And so it means that while I know that's really fancy, but
It's
while
so hot. It's so amazing.
so while so while we're in circle with each other, I'll encourage people to do the practice of going out and coming back in, and going out and coming back in. So it's this constant, like, uh, oscillation, moving in and out, so that you're tapping into your source, and you're
Wow.
also connected in community, and you're not getting stuck either place, because being stuck in here too can also feel kind of like shame. So
Uh-huh.
so it's moving in and out, and allowing people to do that in their rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I've been in many of these circles and I've led many of these circles, and I have never found the exquisite articulation in which you just named these things. I've been searching for years for the words that just flowed so smoothly out of your mouth. I'm so glad you're leading this. It reminds me, as you're talking about the oscillation, what did you say? The oscillation of
Erotic attention.
erotic attention, right? It reminds me, for those who do ecstatic dance or contact improv dance, where it's like if you're moving through the dance space, and if you're so stuck in here, there's a missing of connecting with what's the energy out here. But also, if you're just so focused on somebody else's dance, you're not actually connected to your own dance or your own body. So I really to like that as well.
Yeah.
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 Oh my gosh, we're so lucky and grateful and honored, and I adore you and I love you, and I really love I love the anthropological, did I do it right?
You did.
Lens that you bring. It's so great. Yeah, anything else you want to say here at the end, Victor?
Yeah. Let me see. What do I want to say? I'm always excited to lead these. I mean, I do other things too, but this the like one of the building blocks of uh, somatic sexuality work is this primary relationship with yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and it just feels so foundational, and so I love doing it.
Mhm.
I love the diversity of experiences that
Mhm.
people have, all the way from the ecstatic and joyful to the explorational and experimental to gritty. Sometimes people do this and it's like, this is fucking gritty. This is hard for me. And
Mhm.
and it's all welcome. It doesn't have to be like all rainbows and light at the end. Um, and sometimes it's a mix. Like, I was powerfully moved, and it was really hard. So it's all,
Yeah.
but it's all welcome. And so I enjoy bringing it to people who are interested.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your medicine, and
Mm.
love you.
Love you back, Hazel-Grace, and I look forward to the weekend. Here we go.
Yay! Okay.